we have started now postgraduate certificate inventory planning and warehousing system for engineers, course MWR01 unit 9, that is demand planning and forecasting. Myself R.K. Sinha, I am expert for the course, and I am taking your video lecture. Just now we have already discussed the economic order quantity. Economic order quantity, that is we have already discussed the demand. The annual demand means for the period. For generally demand is taken for the annual. So we have to take annual demand. Now in this chapter or in this block, this is a block 3. So in this block 3, unit 9, we will discuss the demand planning and forecasting, because demand is one of the key factor for the economic order quantity, or for the management of inventory control, planning and control. So we have to discuss the demand, its planning and forecasting. So the content which we have discussed in this block or unit 9: introduction, objectives, demand forecasting in supply chain, demand forecasting procedures, classifications of demand forecast on time frame, demand forecasting system performance criteria, demand forecasting method. So these are the objective of this chapter. So we have to discuss each by step. So naturally, what is the forecast? Because you demand you are knowing, and we are going to discuss the demand forecast. So before that, we have to discuss the forecast. What is a forecast? A forecast is an estimate of an event which will happen in future. Most managerial decisions at all levels of an organization are based explicitly or implicitly on some form of forecast concerning of future. Means if we are talking about the forecast, we are talking about the future planning. So what will happen in the future, because demand is coming for the future period. So we have to just predict the demand or forecast the demand. We have to know that what is our future planning is there. So the need for a forecast would not be felt if there had been a stable environment with a little predictable rate of change. With the environment becoming more complex and dynamic, however, a forecast of future condition becomes almost indispensable, because we know if a future are very stable, then we can have a static forecast, and a future are very variable, then we have a dynamic forecast. So which both type of forecast, the forecast have a many type, which we'll discuss in the next slides. But here to say that forecast, it is if a stable one, then a static forecast, and it is a varying one, then it is a dynamic forecast. Next point, that demand for the product can be considered to be a function of both controllable variables, advertising effort, and uncontrollable variables, the raw material cost. Demand patterns that are not significantly affected by uncontrollable variables are relatively easy to forecast. Means if a demand for the product we have to consider, it is a function of both controllable variables, means we have to do the advertisement effort, and uncontrollable variations, suppose we have to the raw material cost. But the demand pattern are not affected by the uncontrollable variables. Natural variables are relatively easy to forecast. Means you have to depend on advertising effort, which we have not dependent on the raw material cost. So we have only affected by the controllable variables, which is relatively easy to forecast. So in this way, we can see that the inputs, the raw material cost, is not coming in the way to forecast the demand. What are the objective? This objective is very standard objectives with a reasonable one, that understand about the forecasting. What is forecasting? Understand about the procedure of forecasting. Digest the demand forecasting system, its inputs and outputs. Describe the various types of forecast methods and estimate of system performance. Means we have to understand the forecasting, we have to understand how we are forecasting, that is procedure of forecasting, and what are the systems in the forecast. there is a inputs and outputs will be there, and there are various type of forecast methods are there, that their extrapolation is there, probability is there, static demand is there, like that. And after that, they estimate the system performance. But by system, which are forecasting what is the performance of the system. Demand forecast is the process of estimating future demand in terms of the quantity, timely, quality and location for desired product. Means that if we are going to forecast anything demand, then we should know about what is the future demand of the quality, quantity and timing, and what is the location of the desired products. So we should know, then we can forecast the things. In any industrial expertise, forecast is the first level decision activity. This is the demand of a particular product must be available before taking up any other decision problem like material planning, scheduling, implementation of the production system. Means forecasting is the first level decision making. Means how we will forecast is the first level decision. We have to take decisions. So this is the first level decision making, that what method of the forecast we are choosing it. So this if a demand is a particular product must be available before taking up any decision problems. So like the material planning, scheduling, implementation and production system, before that we have to forecast the demand. Forecasting is to plan the future. What is the forecasting? To plan the future, to estimate the future, what will happen in the future, what will be the scenario of demand. So then we can forecast it. So it is to plan the future. It is the compass. In a compass, what we have to do? Compass show a path and direction. Compass show a path and direction without any idea of what to do. So it cannot be done. What to forecast? Everything one must know to plan the future. The compasses, the aspects and such thing as forth. In this unit, we shall limit ourselves to the key factor in the most production planning and control system, that is demand for an it. So what to forecast? In the forecast method, which parameter we have to forecast? So we have to forecast the such thing, the product demand, that and supply, cost price, the lead times, so forth. In this unit, we have to limit it in this chapter with the key factor in the most of the production planning and control system, that is demand of an entity. How frequently to forecast? This frequency of forecast means we have to forecast for a period, for a shorter period, for a middle period, for a long period, long range planning. So what for frequently to forecast? There is no simple answer to this question, because we cannot say that one. There are the two type of situation, one in which the forecast is prepared on which the periodic basis, and second is the forecast are prepared whenever some new historical data are available. Means if you are doing the forecasting for the demand, again some data is there, again to reforecast it and amend it of the demand, that what will be the demand in the new scenario. With the periodic system, a balance should be made. In a periodic system, means in a time constraint, the balance should be made between the benefit of the new forecast and cost of obtaining it. Meaning, if some new data we got and we can do the new forecast, then we could know that what will be the cost of obtaining it and what will the benefit of that one. So if a demand is we have to exactly know what will be the demand, a static demand, then it will be quite beneficial. Time horizon to forecast. There will be a time for forecast, means for a period we have to do forecast. The time horizon to forecast is dependent on the region and for forecasting. Means what are the region for forecasting? If it's forecasting for production planning, facility planning, product demand, what is the region for forecasting? And for the purpose of inventory control, forecasting of a product demand can be made on short term basis. Short term basis for the product demand and inventory control, can we do the short term basis, months, for the week, for a month, or for 6 months, like that short term basis. For the purpose of production planning, product demand forecast may be a longer term, say months in the coming year, or it can have a year also. So however, for facility planning product demand forecast are still longer time, say to 5 to 10 years. And for doing the for the planning product demand forecast, we can take a time horizon of the 5 to 10 years. So we have already shown you that for the inventory control and product demand, we can have a short term basis for forecast. That is forecast, we have to demand forecast of the demand for the shorter period, like a week, month, or even 6 months will be there. And for the purpose of production planning, the product demand forecast may be a longer term, say months or in a year. And for the facility planning, long range planning is there. Facility planning, product demand forecast are still for the longer term, say 5 to 10 years. Good forecast. What is good forecast? What you name as a good forecast? If the actual demand during a given time of period matches with the forecast, we can say the forecast was good. Because if you estimate a future and the actual things happen like that only tally with our forecast, then it is a good forecast. Say forecast was good. In other words, if forecast error is minimum, we say the forecast was good. Forecast technique that provides such a forecast is appropriate. However, there are several ways of measuring the error. So there will be error in we have to forecast and the actual thing happen. There will be error in between that one. So we can measure the error like average and mean deviation. Like the probability, in the theory of probability, so we have to take average or mean deviation. We are measuring for measuring the error, sum of the deviation, absolute deviation, and a standard deviation of error, and the percentage of demand variation determined by a functional equation. It may be necessary to consider any one or more of such measurements when selecting the forecasting techniques. Means we have already discussed what is good forecast. Means if we estimate for the future or forecast for the future the demand and the actual thing happen like tally with that one, then that is a very good forecast. But it is in actual thing it not happen. So there will be must be a difference. There will be a difference between what we forecast and what thing the actual thing will happen. So we can that difference can be taken as an error, and we have to measure the error by deviations methods, by probability methods like average, mean deviation, sum of deviation, absolute deviation, a standard deviation of the error. And this percentage of demand variation determined by the functional equation. So what we done that such measurements when selecting the best forecasting techniques. So we have to select the method for in view of that to choose the best forecasting techniques. What is the demand for supply chain? What is the supply chain? Because manufacturing is going in assembly in the lines. So this line is that the supply chain, because the material is coming from the store. Supplier is sending the material to a store is sending to the manufacture place, manufacturing going to the assembly line going to the after completing the product to the again store. So this is the supply line, supply chain or supply line. So demand forecast is an essential component of any supply chain strategy. Means what we need, what we demand forecasting, that is essential part to supply chain strategy, because it will help you say to estimate how to purchase the materials to meet the customer demand. In this guide to demand forecasting, you will learn, definitely we will learn how to forecast the demand and the best practice for demand planning and supply chain. Means we must know the demand, the quality and quantity for the strategy, for the supply chain strategy, because a supply chain, the first input and output, we know that what should be the input we are putting it to get the output. So this is essential. Suppose we have to purchase the material for raw materials and various spares, parts, consumables. So we should know that how much demand is there and how much we have to purchase. So it is essential to meet the customer demand. In this we have to estimate how to purchase the materials. In this guide, demand forecasting, forecast the demand, the best practice for demand planning in the supply chain. Demand forecasting in a supply chain management refers to the process of planning or predicting the demand of materials to ensure you can deliver the right products and in the right quantity to satisfy the customer demand without creating a surplus. Forecast error can result in creating a surplus, which is both wasteful. Means we suppose our demand what we are demand is there forecasting, and with the real thing will happen that that suppose we have forecast much more than the actual thing, then there is surplus material will be there, and this will be the loss because your working capital is trapped in that one. So the more capital is trapped on that one. So this is this forecasting error. We will see that how can minimize the forecasting error. So there should not be a surplus material, because that will be a wasteful. Importance of demand forecasting in supply chain. What is the importance? What are the importance for demand forecasting to supply chain? Means if you not knowing the demand, and if you are knowing the demand forecast, the thing is such much that will be that much of quantity is required in the supply chain. So it is essential to know the demand, and for know the demand of the future, we have to have demand forecasting. So it is important to supply chain because it is a process by which the strategic and operational strategy are devised. Think of it as the underlying hypothesis for the strategic business activities and the starting point for most supply chain process, like raw material planning, purchasing, inbound logistic, cash flow and manufacturing. Means for the supply chain in the every process, because supply chain have a lot of processes there. For the every process, for the strategy and operational strategy, you must know the what will be the estimate of demand, or what is the forecast of the demand. So for the supply chain process, like raw material planning, like purchase, inbound, logistic, cash flow measuring, we must know the forecast of the demand. It facilitates critical business activities like financial planning, production planning, risk assessment and purchase of raw materials. Means is also forecast also facilitate that what will be this much of demand there, and this much of finance is required, because we can calculate that one. So by knowing the demand, by forecasting, we can know the financial planning, we can know the production, we can plan the production, we can have a risk assessment, and then we have to purchase the raw material because we know the demand. Most important, the forecast accuracy enables retailers to avoid stockouts and overstocking. Stockouts means if you forecast the material, and that will be the very short figure, and actual demand is much more, then there will be stockouts. And overstocking means if you purchase the material much more than what is the real demand is there, so it will be a surplus material will be hanging. So this is the stockouts and this is the overstocking. Improve the production lead times. Means what will the lead time is doing the production process. We have a time consuming, so we have to minimize the time and maximize the operational efficiency, and that way we can improve the lead times, minimize the cost, increase the operational efficiency and improve the customer. How demand forecasting works? Means how we are doing that demand forecast that can be work. The process can be broken down in qualitative and quantitative forecasting, both of which rely on different resource and data sets to explore useful sales data. Means we have to broke the process, the forecasting process, into two parts, the quantitative and qualitative. So what quality of the forecast is there? Means it is a good quality forecast, means it is a near to actual thing, then it will be a good forecast. The quantitative forecasting method is to use when there is existing historical sales data or specific products and pre-stabilized demand. Means if you forecast the demand for the quantity of the item, then what in quantity term, then we should know the historical past data, sales data, that will be helpful for the specific product and a pre-established demand. It requires the use of mathematical formulation, data say like financial reports, sales, revenue figure, website. So these are our inputs that we require when we are doing about the forecasting, and for the quantity of the demand, then use of mathematical formulation, data sets like financial reports, sales, revenue figures and website analytics is required for forecasting of the quantity, demand in quantity term. Demand forecasting is valuable for the all business, but particularly useful to e-commerce brand and retailers, which accurate the forecasting is can support the inventory management effort and improve the customer experience. Because demand forecasting is valuable for all the business, but in particular e-commerce, like Amazon is doing supplying the items online. So online material is coming. So for the e-commerce brands, demand forecast is very essential, like that. In the first quarter how much demand will be there, in seasonal variation how much demand will be there, and in winter what type of demand will be there. So this is essential for the e-commerce brand to just fill the material, fill their warehouse to supply the material, or supply the finished product to the customer well in time. So this demand forecasting is very much essential for all the business, but particularly in the e-commerce brands and retailers, where the actual forecasting can support the inventory management effort and improve the customer experiences. Now we have to going for forecast, how we collect the right data. For your demand forecast to be successful, you must ensure that you have a right kind of data to make informed business decisions, because we have to take a decision of business, and the profit and loss of the business will depend on that one. So the kind of data to make the informed business decision, it is important to honing on the numbers give you the information. You need to make decisions like pricing trends, how many people visited on your sales channels in a given time of frame, means on website for the e-commerce, that what is the price trend and how much people visited on your website for on your sales channels. So in a given time frame, suppose for a week, for a month, for a year, so that will give a clear picture that what type of data it is that, and matching to that one we can forecast the demand. Now there will be the forecasting variables and fixed data will be there. So we have to adjust for the variables, document sales and demand trends. We have to study these inputs for the forecasting. Budget, purchase and allocate according to once your demand forecast is in place. Only thing left to the utilize your collected data to draw up a strategy for how, where and when allocate your resource and purchasing efforts. Means we have to estimate the variables, adjust the variables, and we have to say the document sale and demand trends. So in the case of preparation of budget, purchase planning and allocate accordingly. Once your demand forecast in the place, the only thing to do to utilize your collected data to draw up a strategy for how, where and when to allocate your resources and purchasing efforts. Demand forecast, there will be a classification of demand forecast in the time frame, means there will be a classification of the demand forecast in the given time, suppose for a week, for a month, for a year, or for a 5 to 10 years, like that, there will be a classification. So this classification, demand forecast can be classified according to the length of planning period, means period, time horizon or time. Short term. Short term means there will be the 1 to 5 weeks. 1 to 5 weeks is the planning, forecasting is there for demand forecasting. It is short term planning. Medium and intermediate term planning, 1 month to 2 years, means 1 month to 24 months. If you take in for the medium range planning, for the median, that is called for the medium range planning, and for the long range planning, even 2 to 10 years, that is a corporate planning or type of business or nature of business, what will be the scenario in that time. So that is coming in long term business. 2 to 10 years. These are three types of classification will be there: short term, medium term and long term. So by see that type of organization decision affected by a different forecast, we will see that the short term 1 to 5 weeks, means short term we have to 1 to 5 weeks, what we told earlier. What type of organization decision? Assignment of orders to specific facilities and personal dispatching to meet the delivery times. These type of organization decision we have to take for the shorter term planning. For intermediate planning, what organization decision we can take? For size of workforce to be employed, kinds and amounts of inventories to maintain, amount of desires of contracting whenever needed, amount of desire over time. So this type of organization decisions we can take for the 1 month to 24 months, 2 years. So this is the intermediate planning or middle planning, and last is the long range planning for the 2 to 10 years. What the organization decision we have to take forecast for the 2 to 10 years: type of products, service to offer, type and sizes of markets to serve, process and technology to imply, plan location and plant size. Means 3 types of short term, intermediate term and long term. This long term planning is a very crucial planning, and we have to see that there is a quite corporate planning, a lot of type of technology, type of engineering and type of production process, manufacturing process, what type of product will be available in market. So this all we have to take for the long term planning. See, and this is we can plan for the 10 years, even the 15 years or 20 years we can long term plan. Many corporate house had a plan for the 10 to 20 years. So their type of product, their process, their type of process, their technology, what type of technology there, so they can plan for the 10 and 20 years. That is a long range plans. So we have already seen in this session that we have different type of forecast, different type of forecast planning is there, type of errors in the planning, what will be the difference between the actual happening and the forecasting. So what type of errors we have to measure. So what type of errors we have to measure by probability, by many probability theory of probabilities like mean or standard deviations. So and lastly, there in the type of organization decision affected. So the type of the forecast which you have taken for the, we have concluded here: short term, intermediate term and long term. A short term and intermediate term for the running productions and raw materials, it is there, but the long term production for the corporate planning, for the type of technology to be used, type of engineering, the manufacturing process, type of product will be available, and what are the benefits, cost benefit analysis is there for that system, so that we can plan for the business for the, if many corporate house plan for the 10 to 20 years. So that is coming in the long term planning. So in this way we conclude that we know the forecasting, we know the demand, we know the forecasting, we know the type of forecasting, we know the error in forecasting, we know the classification of forecasting, we know the type of organization decision to be taken in different short term, intermediate term and long term forecasting. So here we have forecasting the demand is complete. Now the next session we will take.